Hi, welcome to Rajal Naik. In this video, I am going to explain the difference among the roles and responsibilities of four different roles because nowadays in the field of IT, in reference to the job profiles for the analyst related things, there are a couple of roles we see because in the job market, whenever people were applying for jobs, people have some little bit of confusion over these because I'm not generalizing this statement for everyone, but most of the people confuse us like what kind of analyst role do are we capable of? What kind of analyst role are we suitable? Right? This sort of lot of queries based on my interaction with lot of students over a couple of years. There is a lot of confusion over few people, lack of understanding over the difference among the kind of roles what I am presenting here, right? So because there is a lot of confusion over that. So that in order to remove that confusion, at least to help people who are applying for jobs or whoever wants to learn new skill sets in the phase of analysis, I hope this video will give an at least an overall understanding so that they can take a better decision accordingly. So the purpose of making this video is to provide some exposure towards the kind of roles available in IT so that what kind of skill set do we require? So what is that we do all that? Of course, this is all in high level glimpse. I am not going in detail part of it because which takes a lot of time will be taken for me to cover all that. But in a high level glimpse so that people will have an idea over this so that it will be easy for them to take a decision for learning as well as to become or for applying for job opportunities in the field of analyst. If you see in the field of IT, especially the analyst roles were broadly classified into four different parts. The first is business analyst, second data analyst, third was systems analyst, and fourth was quality analyst. Let us understand the responsibility or the roles what BA do. Usually business analysts are the people you see for any of the organization, whatever the business problem a customer is facing, trying to provide the solution in terms of the business is what generally a BA do. So a business analyst trying to understand the kind of business problem what customer is facing by understanding their business requirements, and followed by this whatever the possible solution in terms of the business has to be provided by the BA. This is what usually the role of a business analyst if you see as a whole. Hence, business analysts always act as a liaison between business and technical communities. Like business community means customer, right? So any customer, any client wants to develop some application for their business needs. So there is a gap where functional and technicalities come into picture because business people always have an idea experience over the functionality, right? So they may not have the jargons, knowledge over the technicalities, all that. So business knowledge is what required so that business analyst will have that knowledge over. So gathering the business requirements by understanding the business problem of the customer. So necessary solutions with the help of systems analyst team as well as technical team is what generally BA do. Usually this is the first role whenever we start the project. So the business analyst act as a liaison and where they acts as a front face of the project, right? So this is what usually BA do. Now, when we are comparing this with data analysts, right? So data analysts are the people who majorly works on data. So gathering the data is what generally in data analysts do, right? So gathering of data. So business analysts gather the business requirements, what problem, right? So requirements, what kind of functionalities do they have in their existing project? What else do we require to develop? This sort of idea is what generally BA do. But data analysts are the people majorly focusing on gathering of data. For example, if you want to take a decision on something, for example, a bank wants to provide loan. for some X person. On what basis they will be giving? They will be giving loan based upon the previous track record of the payment track record, the kind of income what they get, all that. So credit history in a simple note. So to take a decision of any business, it need not be a financial institution. Any institution they wants to take a decision on something, some business decision to be taken. There must be a scientific approach, and scientific calculation is essentially required. So because they cannot take decision based on some assumptions, isn't it? Right. So decision should be concrete, and that implementation of the decision gives a fruitful results to them as well. Hence, it is always required for them to work on some data, because if you take retail organization, they wants to know about the perception of the customer, what kind of products customers are showing interest to buy. So which kind of product is moving fast, right? In retailing sector I'm talking about, right? So perception, customer perception, demands, expectations, so that a shop owner or a retail owner should know. So based on that, whatever the possible products to be placed will be based to them. So this is what generally data analysts do. So data analysts are the people who works on the data. So business analysts are the people who works on the requirements, gathering requirements from the customer, all that. Whereas when we talk about data analyst works on the data, whatever the data is available there. So the data will be calculated, which is all, we call it as data sets and all, everything is available. So by doing some statistical tools, using some statistical tools and all that, so this whatever the data has been gathered will be calculated, and final conclusion and report will be submitted accordingly. This is what generally data analyst role is. Third is systems analyst, people who gather the system requirements, because there is a constant connect between business analyst to systems analyst role. Of course, nowadays, earlier we used to have two different roles. One is business analyst and second is systems analyst. Because business analysts take care of business requirements, systems analysts take care of system requirements. Means if you are developing an core banking application for a customer who is from a financial institution or a bank, let me put you this way. Now, to develop the core banking application, what kind of features, functional and non-functional requirements are needed? This is what generally BA do. What systems analysts do? Systems analysts try to understand what kind of system configuration infrastructure is required for us to develop the project by considering the existing infrastructure which was located in the customer location. So whether if you are transforming an application to the next level, will it be sufficient? The present infrastructure which has located in the client is sufficient or not, or do you require to change anything of that sort? This is all something relating to system requirements. So systems analyst focusing on the systems. Systems means what technology do we require to use, which kind of systems we want to use, infrastructure of the systems. This is what generally systems analyst role will be majorly of. Earlier, we used to have two different roles in the beginning days, but nowadays you can see some profiles which called business systems analyst. You can see some profiles even, right? Business systems analyst means business knowledge should be there for them. At the same time, they should have a knowledge over the systems, right? So this is systems means not a physical system. I'm talking about infrastructure. It could be in user interfaces, or it could be application. It could be a programming language, or it could be database, whatever it is, right? So everything, both hardware and software, I can say on a simple understanding. So systems analyst majorly focusing on gathering the system requirements, where you have a connect with BA to systems analyst, because these two people works on the project. So whenever there are high level requirements were gathered by the business analyst, whether this can be developed and how to develop this, what are the system requirements and configuration required, everything will be looking after by the systems analyst. Next, quality analyst. Quality analyst majorly focusing on the kind of quality standards and matrix one we have to follow, because if you are developing a product or a project, that must be a quality one, right? So that should have that quality. So quality of work is essentially important when you are performing something rather than the quantity all the time. So there are some quality standards and metrics which has to be adopted in the field of IT, which normally quality analyst people will do. So more or less, I can say this quality analyst is more or less something nearer to the testing part, because here I must tell you the difference here as far as my experience for a very long time what I have seen. I must tell you this point, because most of the people feels that testing and quality were same. Okay, testing and quality were same, but there is a line of difference between testing and quality. Testing, nothing but it's a procedure which you are following to see whether this particular functionality is performing well or not. This is what generally testing stands for. Testing is a procedure which is a continuous process which we are doing for a very long time. Quality represents you the standard. Okay, in a simple note to understand the difference between testing and quality is, testing represents you the procedure of doing something. Quality represents you the standard, how to do, right? So procedure is what we are following in testing. But how and what kind of standards do we require to follow in order to make it more qualitative? This is what quality represents. Testing represents the procedure, quality represents the standard. This is what the line of difference, thin line of difference between testing and quality one should understand, because most of the people confuses here. Testing and quality both are same. To an extent possible, whatever the observation you have is right, but not to the full extent. Because there is a line of difference is this. Testing represents you the procedure or a process. What is that we follow to see whether this particular functionality is performing well or not. So for that, they have to prepare some test cases, test scripts, all that stuff, test reports, all that. Whereas quality majorly focusing on the standards as well as the kind of metrics, what is that they have to follow. Next, when we talk about business analyst should have a skill set where they have to engage with the stakeholders. Stakeholders can be of anything. Okay? Stakeholders can be external stakeholders or it could be an internal stakeholders. Managing the stakeholders by identifying them. Stakeholder identification is what they have to do. So once they have identified the stakeholders, analysis and management is what they have to do. This is what we call it as engagement of stakeholders, all that. That is what the experience being a business analyst one must be having. Next, when we talk about data analyst should have an understanding over the different types of data, what is that is being available, that sort of knowledge a data analyst should be having. At the same time, systems analyst should focus on the infrastructure, whatever the infrastructure you require to develop the project. The overall knowledge over the infrastructure of the systems should be known to the systems analyst well in advance. At the same time, when you see the quality analyst as a note, quality analyst should have a knowledge over the kind of types of quality and processes what they use, what are the different types of qualities and as well as process they use and all. That knowledge is required for a quality analyst. Next, business analyst should have a knowledge over the functional skills to an extent, but nowadays even technical skills are also becoming important, because technical skills, I don't say that you need to be good with programming or testing, all that stuff. So if you have a knowledge over programming and testing and all, it's an advantage for you, but which is not mandatory all the time. So functional knowledge is an extent possible which is required. Apart from the technical knowledge and technical skills is also required. This is what generally the functional skills which being a BA one should have. Technical knowledge is an add-on, because some people come from a technical background to business analyst. Some people come from a functional background to technical related. So knowledge over the functional knowledge is something essentially important, which is also equally required. At the same time, when we talk about the data analyst, knowledge and as well as knowing about the different types of data what we have should have a knowledge over this. Systems analysts should have a technical knowledge, right? So they need to know about the infrastructure. They need to know about hardware and software, what kind of hardware is required, software. They must have a knowledge over the cloud environment, which is happening now, right? So most of the applications were developing on cloud environment. They should have a knowledge over the cloud environment. All these things, that sort of knowledge is required in reference to the systems analyst part. Next, when we talk about quality analyst should have a knowledge over the QC process, quality control process, whatever the quality control, because how you are going to maintain the quality standards and what are the QC process, that sort of knowledge is required for a QA. Now, business analyst majorly works in analysis and design part of the project, because whenever you are developing a project, there are some stages of application development like analysis, planning and design, implementation, testing, deployment, delivery, all that. So the major role of a business analyst majorly lies in the phase of analysis and planning and design in the beginning. Of course, business analyst will also be involved in the stage of deployment of the project even sometimes when they have to perform some UAT, all that stuff. But majorly to understand with analysis and design is what generally one should be having. This is what generally the analysis and design is required. Right. So this is what generally we need to focus more on, right? Works majorly on the analysis and design part of the project, wherein data analyst works majorly on collecting and interpreting the data. What are the different types of data we have, either structured or unstructured data that has to be collected and interpreted? That sort of knowledge is required for a data analyst. When we talk about the role of a systems analyst must focus on the systems and as well as the processes followed by the stages of analysis and design. Because even systems analyst will also work parallelly with business analyst, because business analyst takes care of business requirements, systems analyst takes care of system requirements. So both will work parallelly in a hand in hand. This is also required. Next, quality analyst works on the testing teams and processes. Whatever the testing teams and processes do we have? So knowledge as well as working with testing teams, because testing team will perform two things. One is manual and automation testing. So supporting that testing team and as well as understanding about the process is what generally QA do. Next, focus towards present and future needs is what generally BA has to. BA has to understand the present condition, what business has, what kind of solution is desired now, and what could be the future needs. That sort of assessment is required for a BA. At the same time, data analysts should have a focus on over the data sets and as well as the trends, what exactly were happening now. Systems analysts focus more on the high level and low level system needs. What are the system needs, requirements like high level and low level, the system requirements and the needs. That focus must be there for a systems analyst. When reference to the quality analyst role, they must be focusing more on the quality and testing process, because being a QA, it is always better to have a knowledge over the testing process even. So testing and quality process knowledge should also be there to them. Now, business analysts should have a knowledge over the skills of analyzing the business situation, what exactly the present situation the business was in. So how to improve it to the next level. This sort of understanding and this sort of knowledge is required. Analysis skills. Business analysts should have analysis skills. Data analysts required analytical skills, because they are working on some data using different tools and all that. So they need to have a knowledge over the analytical skills. So for that, of course, they use some tools and all. That's a different story. Next, systems analysts should have a knowledge over the system behavior, expectations, and reality, because how system will behave, right? So system behavior and expectations of different systems, followed by this, what is possible, reality, what can be implemented. So that sort of skill set is required for a systems analyst. Either it could be cloud environment nowadays, which is happening, all that. At the same time, quality analyst should have a focus on the quality assurance and the quality standards and control. This is also something essentially required. Now, business analyst should have a knowledge and as well as tools they use like Microsoft Visio and all everything to prepare some wireframe, prepare some UML diagrams. At the same time, preparing some flow charts, right? So all that. Of course, there are other tools even, star UML, rational rows, all that. So that is required. Next, Balsamiq is used to prepare some wireframes and mockers. Even Jira is being used in the environment of Agile to write user stories, all that. Data analyst, as a part of analyzing the data and interpreting the data, they use something like Python, R programming, Excel, knowledge over the Excel. At the same time, to extract the data, wherein to write some queries and all that SQL. All that knowledge is required for a data analyst. Of course, nowadays for a BA, you require some knowledge over SQL also. That is becoming, because situation to situation, skill set to skill set, job description to description, there will be some slight variations you can see, which will happen in any of the profiles. Okay. So systems analyst will need to have a knowledge over the system tools. If there is any system tools knowledge, that is required. Next, knowledge over IS Six Sigma standards, right? So green belt, this sort of standards knowledge over this is required for a QA. Last but not least, the other point, business analyst should have an experience over the knowledge areas, like knowledge areas which was prescribed by business analyst body BEBOC, like business analysis, planning and monitoring, illustration and collaboration, enterprise or strategy analysis, requirement lifecycle management, requirement analysis and solution design, solution assessment and validation. So that sort of knowledge areas is required for a BA to understand. When we talk about data analysts, they need to have an idea over data prescription, descriptive or predictive kind of data, right? So different things, that knowledge is required. At the same time, systems analysts should have a knowledge over the stages of systems analysis, what is that they follow. Quality analysts should have a knowledge as well as the areas of quality standards, what is that to be improved and how they be implemented. So this is all an overall glimpse over the different roles and responsibilities and how different among BA, data analyst, systems analyst, and quality analyst is all about. So depends on the kind of professional experience as the educational background one should have, one has. Based on that, what kind of career is essentially useful to them is what they have to decide. Of course, what market requires, what market drives, that will be there. But end of the day, when you are trying to choose a career, of course, this is all my personal view based out of my experience. It's always better not only by understanding the market needs, but also we have to see where we are capable and where we are successful in long run. That we have to see. Because for example, I'm having very good communication skills, where I have very good stakeholder management skills. Assume that I am not from a technical background. It is always better for me to choose business analyst role rather than any other roles also. But so we have to see how personally or how professionally we are qualified and how personally we are capable to handle what kind of role. So based on that, choosing the role is essentially important. So based on that, whatever the training are you taking in regular intervals from anyone, it could be. So at the same time, whenever we are applying for job opportunities and all that, so especially for job seekers and all, as well as the people who are looking for career transformation, my advice with them is, first of all, try to see, of course, market expectations and demands are essentially important. I never say no for that, but at the same time, how professionally, which profile and which role is more suitable, that you have to decide based on your professional experience and as well as educational qualification what you have. It is always helpful for you, which will be in long run, may not be beneficial now immediately, but in long run it will sustain and it will help you by keeping that view into mind. So this is all about my video today. I hope most of the people who has seen this video will have a idea over what exactly I'm trying to say. I hope this video likes by you. So this is all about this. If you have any questions in regard to this, any career transformation related advices you require on these grounds, you always have a choice where you can reach out to my contact details, which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you. Have a great evening.